So, as you all know, we were on vacation, Libby, the kids and I, last week, and it was wonderful. And sometimes it's just nice to kind of get out of the regular pace and be still. Job 37, verse 14. Hearken unto this, O Job, stand still and consider the wondrous works of God. And you know what? As we live our lives and we do our daily tasks, it's important to have God there with us, and not just His presence, but our mindfulness of Him and how we, and our perspectives on, everything that we do. When we work for God. When we play for God. When we, do anything, it should all be for God. And it was really nice when we were on vacation to just kind of be still and consider the wondrous works of God. Now, we were in southern Utah in Moab, and I thought the plains of Lemhi County were sort of barren compared to where I came from in Maine. Utah, whew. It's much more so. And we did a lot of hiking. We were outside every day. And I don't know how many hours we put in with Gabe in the pack, and we were out there finding arches, finding canyons, and finding rocks. And I've got props tonight. So feel free to look through as you listen, of course. For me, I find God's beauty and God's wondrous works in minerals. It's just a thing I have. I enjoy it. You'll find there are many different kinds of rocks there. There's calcite, there's red agate, yellow agate, there's conglomerate. I've got petrified wood in there, and you'll even see a dinosaur bone that Emily got. That's Emily's dinosaur bone. And it's glued to that piece of paper in there. And we were rock hunting in the formations that contain all of this stuff. We saw dinosaur tracks, for example. And even though the country, you might see one or two cows here and there, and they are very skinny cows because it's almost all rock, very, very little vegetation. But despite the barrenness of a desert that, as you drive down the highway, you look out and you're like, ugh, I'll never live here. As you get out in it and you're hiking, you can still see the evidence of the wondrous works of God. Each one of those minerals God created unique and individually. They're within the same, probably two formations if I got the geologic map down right. There's a couple of formations that those were found in. They were one layer above another in a faulted area. I won't get into the geology of it. They were all formed in the same general location with similar types of chemical compositions under different circumstances to form very unique, and if you examine them closely, you may not be a rock fan like I am or a mineral fan like I am, but there is a lot of beauty to be found. And when you look out at the desert, you just see brown. When you look closely, you can see God's work. I'm going to continue reading. This is, of course, Elihu, which is not one of the three friends that Job spoke to Job, basically. And he waited, I think, until around chapter 32 or something. He waited later on, after all the three friends were, trying to give Job advice, not really getting him an answer, and basically condemning him. And then Elihu could stand it no longer, and he didn't have the status of the other three friends, but he finally decided to speak. And so I'll read verse 14 and following. And here we go, starting in verse 14 once again. Hearken unto this, O Job, stand still and consider the wondrous works of God. Dost thou know when God disposed them and caused the light of his cloud to shine? Dost thou know the balancings of the clouds the wondrous works of him which is perfect in knowledge. How thy garments are warm when he quieteth the earth by the south wind. Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as a molten looking glass? Teach us what we shall say unto him, for we cannot order our speech by reason of darkness. Shall it be told him that I speak? If a man speak, surely he shall be swallowed up. And now men see not the bright light which is in the clouds, but the wind passeth and cleanseth them. Fair weather cometh out of the north. With God is terrible majesty. Touching the Almighty, we cannot find him out. He is excellent in power and in judgment, and in plenty of justice. He will not afflict. Men do therefore fear him. He respecteth not any that are wise of heart. And without going through a line by line, verse by verse, he speaks of things such as the clouds and the weather, which are fairly common things to talk about. It's one of the first things you might say in a conversation. But the balancings of them, what caused the light of the cloud to shine? And then as he further goes on, he speaks about our speech and speaking from our own wisdom as opposed to humility and recognizing God's. And acknowledging that terrible majesty. What a phrase. And that he respecteth not any that are wise of heart. That's much like as you would see later in chapter 42, God got out, he told Job's three friends that they were in the wrong, and they had some follow-up action to take care of in order to remedy that situation. But Job was also having some struggles too, because he was basically striving with this situation. And if you can imagine, I don't think I can, what he was going through. I think any of us would have those same issues. It's a very human thing. But going back to God's wondrous works, his works are everywhere. It's in the clouds. It should be in our speech. It's in the weather, in the wind. It's in the barren desert. That molten looking glass that I love, hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as a molten looking glass. A lot of the agates that we find around here are born of volcanic activity. They were molten. And they are made of, silicon dioxide, which is glass. It's basically natural glass. God made glass. I found pure clear as a window silica out by the Yellow Jacket area next to the wilderness. And you can find crystals out there that you could see straight through them. God made all of that. There is, and you might not see it at first glance, but in every single detail of creation, if we take the time to just be still and be humble and look around us, the evidence of God's creation and of its marvelous construction is everywhere, in every single molecule, every single atom. And when we just kind of be still and stop running that regular motion of life and distracted by all the things of this world that Satan would have us be caught up with, it's very simple, it's very clear. And it is a wonderful thing. And the song number 31, does run in the vein of being still and considering the wondrous works of God. There is a children's song on Libby's iPhone, which nobody knows that song, but that song is based, it is called Stand Still and Consider the Wondrous Works of God, and it comes from Job 37, verse 14. Emily loves that song. We play it in the car. But there is so much more wisdom than, playing a song for a child. There is a lesson for us too, for that. And sometimes, as I realized when I finally took a break from work, which has me distracted most of the time, and I turned the cell phone off and we went out and just went hiking, went into God's creation, and it was quiet, there was no one there, I was still, and I noticed it, and it can be a very impactful experience, and I recommend it to everyone. But with that thought in mind, if anybody would like to have any concerns, any prayers that we need, please feel free to come forward as we stand and sing.